What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we discuss the art, science, and business of comedy with comedians and comedian adjacent. With this episode's guest, John Verrico. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, welcome to Done Way Past Funny, where we discuss the art, science, and business of comedy with comedians and the comedian adjacent. I'm your host, G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic chemist at large, but I'm losing weight. Joining me is comedian, author, motivational speaker, Johnny Verrico. Johnny, welcome.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Great.
It's an honor to be on this show, man. Just the fact that you reached out and said, "Hey," that was just amazing.
Well, thank you for doing this.
That means you recognize the fact that I was a comic, So
yes, or comic adjacent.
I like comic adjacent because I usually stand near funny people.
So, and that's the whole point is because aside from the fact. The main thing is like what you're doing as a motivational speaker, you use humor in that. And so some people do comedy, but they are not comedians. So and there are people out there who think they should be comedians. They say, I'm really funny, I should be on stage. And maybe they shouldn't be on stage. Maybe they should be a writer. Maybe they should be a motivational speaker. Maybe they should be an actor. Maybe they should just give up comedy altogether because they're really not funny. But the point is, you could produce shows. You don't have to be a comedian per se to be involved in comedy. So that's the whole point of this is to let people know.
I never really said that. Hey, I'm a comedian or a stand-up comic or all that. Although I did that. But when you tell somebody that, the first thing they say is, "Oh, make me laugh. Tell me a joke." No pressure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. And all of a sudden, all of your material goes completely out of your brain.
Now, before we go too far, I just want people, because I introduced you, I want people to have you tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how long you've been doing it, and how they can stalk you on social media if you want them to do so.
Absolutely, man. So I can kind of go way back to the early start of things. I was born a poor black child. No, I'm kidding.
We were brothers, in fact.
My twinny. No, actually, going back, I was born and raised in Brooklyn and then in New Jersey, and I was a little kid. I was the undersized kid in school, and I was an extrovert, but forced to be in an introvert's body because every time I drew attention to myself, I got beat up, right? The big guys always want to pick on the little kids. I never understood that. It's like, how are you showing that you're a big tough guy if you can beat up a little kid like me?
Oh, yeah.
And I used to tell that to them. Big tough guy, you're going to beat me up? Why don't you beat up that other big guy over there? Then you could prove yourself, Didn't work. I just got my face beat in. But anyway, so I didn't want to draw attention to myself, but I loved interacting with people, and it was theatrics in my family blood. I mean, my grandfather was a vaudevillian. My mother was a Rockette back in the early days before.
Wow.
She
was a hottie.
Oh yeah, and I can tell you story after story after story about growing up with the hot mom in the neighborhood.
Believe me, I been there. We can swap those stories.
Yeah. She was still dancing at 85.
Wow.
So
is that where you got your disco moves from? I'm sorry, we didn't get to that part yet.
Funny, I actually kept that secret from my mother.
What? Whoa! You were okay. People who don't know, I've read ahead. I've done some research. Okay, and I happen to know that he was a world champ. That Johnny was a world champion disco dancer. As a matter of fact, I think he played turbo in Breaking 3.
None of the
third one.
None of the above.
Not the first two. That was a different turbo. But in the third one, he played turbo. But you held breaking dancing from your mom. You kept that a secret.
Yeah, I did. I did at first. So here's what happened.
Why?
Like I
Okay,
said, I
what? No,
was
why?
I don't know. I would, Mike, because my mother was one of those kind of people, just like, when you tell somebody you're a comedian and they say, make me laugh, tell me a joke.
Right.
If my mother knew that I was professionally dancing, she would want me to perform. And I couldn't perform with mom. I couldn't dance with mom.
So you had performance anxiety. Is this an
Definitely.
Oedipus thing? You
I don't
couldn't.
know what it was. It was just the fact that she's my mom, and I'm actually too busy fighting my high school classmates, my teachers, and my college classmates, and keeping them away from mom.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was the whole hot mom thing. But like I said, I was this little kid in school, and trying to defend having the hot mom. I was a lousy athlete. And the only reason why I got to be on any of the sports teams at all, or the reason why I got to be included in anything, was because I had a hot mom, and they knew mom was going to come pick me up after school.
Now I'm going to ask you this. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but because we mentioned your dad was in vaudeville,
No, my
was it your dad?
grandfather.
Your grandfather? The
Yeah,
grandfather was
my
in vaudeville.
mother's father was a vaudevillian,
Okay,
and he
and your
brought
mother
when my
and your
mother
mother.
was like 4 years old, he would bring her out on stage and have her dance with him.
Do you have pictures of them doing those things? Because I want to put them up if you had the pictures.
I think I have a picture of my grandfather. I don't have any of my mom's early stuff.
Wow.
A lot of that stuff was destroyed in a fire, unfortunately.
Ooh.
So all of that that era of her life, that pre-meeting dad stuff is all gone. There's a few baby pictures, and that's it. When we had her celebration of life, it was heartbreaking when we realized that kind of big gap that we had in her portfolio of stuff.
Mm.
But I do have some younger pictures of her that I can show. There are a couple
Yeah.
of her in that era. To show what she looked like, and also what she looked like when I was in high school. When she passed away, my former neighbors reached out to us
Mm-hmm.
on social media and said, hey, when we lived next door to you, I remember your mom really well. I remember the day we moved in, and my husband was pulling the car into the driveway as friends of ours were taking a dresser off the back of the truck, and your mom walked out of the backyard in a bikini. And they dropped the dresser, and Charlie hit the garage door with the car, and we almost didn't move in. When I met my wife, and when I introduced my my girlfriend, ultimately my wife, to my mother still had a 19-inch waistline.
Wow. My mother, 19 inches, that was like one of her boobs, circumference of one of her boobs, I think. My mother was like a 36 double G at one point. Yeah. Wow. So
double G, what is that? God.
When I was younger, when I was old enough to go shopping for my own clothes. So I was older than 9, but I was younger than 11 because my mother hadn't remarried yet. My father died when I was 8. So I'm going to the mall to
That's a
buy
terrible
clothes.
shame. I'm so sorry.
And oh, you didn't do it, did you? Actually, we know my mother did it. Everybody knows. I mean, they call it cancer, but we know my mother did it. So I was going to the mall, and I was being polite. I said, "Mom, do you want anything from the mall while I'm going?" I was being polite. The answer is supposed to be no. Have fun. Okay? No. My mother goes, I need a bra. And and I'm like, I went, and first of all, I should have been prepared because I've been going to the store to buy my mother sanitary napkins since I was like 7 or 8 years old. Okay, because my mother sent me to store. My mother goes like, I need some napkins. Hurry up because I'm out. That kind of thing. And I run to the store, and my mother goes, and don't be embarrassed. She goes, if you're embarrassed, talk to Mrs. Katz. She'll understand. Because she's a woman, she'll understand. And I need super modest heavy flow. But I go in the store, and the store is packed with customers.
Of
And I'm
course
like,
it is.
and I'm like, And I'm like, so I want to be discreet because I'm so embarrassed. But I called Mrs. Katz over and I said, and it was on the top shelf. And I said, my mom needs the heavy flow Modest sanitary napkins. And she goes, okay. Then she goes, Carl, could you get the so we can get the Modest? It's for Glenn's mom.
Oh,
so
gotta
with
love
that,
it.
you think I wouldn't have a problem with the bra thing? And my mother said to me, you know, you've been buying sanitary napkins. Don't be embarrassed. She says, I need you to go to Lane Bryant. If people don't know what Lane Bryant is, if you know what a big and tall store is, Lane Bryant is for big chested women. Well, not
Big
big.
women. Mm-hmm.
Okay. My mother didn't shop at Lane Bryant for anything else but bras. That's it. Everything else you could get like at a regular store because everything else about her was proportionate, not the gazongas. She inherited the Thomas tits. You know, the entire Thomas line was tits. If you weren't a D cup in the Thomas family, you weren't trying, or you were a man. so my mother
I don't know.
says,
We had some men in my family that probably could have known.
so my mom says, you go in, I need a 36 double G. And I'm looking at my mother, and so she goes, they're not going to believe you. And so she goes, and this is how you determine the size. So she teaches me how you determine a woman's size, the cup size and everything, so that when I get there, I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I'm a good representative for my mother's tits. And so I go there and I say to the lady, I need a bra for my mother. And this is what size? I said 36 double G. And the woman just looks at me. She goes, are you sure? I said, yes, ma'am. And then I explained to her how you determine the size, cup size. I'm going through this like, you know, and she goes, I know how to tell. She said, I know how to tell. I said, I know. My mother wanted me to know so that you know that I'm not making this up. And so she goes, show me. And when women are coming in, she goes, point out someone who's like your mom. And like it is like coming in like a C cup is walking in, a D cup is walking in, a B cup, an A cup, you know, a half a cup. Things are just, and so one lady walks in with the biggest tits in the store. So at that point, and I said, see that lady there? She goes, yes. I said, my mother's twice that. She goes, okay, 36 double G it is.
Now, you know, when we when mom passed away and we cleaned out all of her stuff and we're going through, she had 72 bras that were still not even used.
Wow.
She
How old was your mom when she passed? How old
85.
was your mom? How 85?
85.
85. Okay.
85. And they were like 38 double E. You know, they were some decent size stuff. And you know, it's a weird thing. Being an adult male going through your mom's underwear.
Mm.
And then there was a box, and her husband had boxed up some stuff. You know, please help me, you know, to take this stuff out of the house.
So she be married after your father died?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
She was actually she met her third husband when she was 70 years old. She got married to her third husband when she was 70 years old, and he was only 58.
Well, but your father was 58 when he died, right? Was it 55,
Yeah,
58?
yeah. My father was 58 when he passed. He died unfortunately very young.
So
Not as young as your
was
father.
he her first husband or second?
He was her first husband.
Okay.
And then a few years later, she met another guy and she married him. She was married for about 10 years and he passed away. And then she was unmarried for a little while. And then she met this guy who was a singer. And he had a karaoke business, and she said, "Your voice is too good for to be doing karaoke. You need to be behind the mic. You know, you need to be the voice on the mic."
Right.
And they started talking, and then they started dating, and then, like I said, at 70 years old, she married him. He was only, like I said, he was only 58. He was 12 years younger than she was. Something about that number, I guess, 58.
I was about to say that.
By the way, which was the year I was born?
58?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a year. I was doing, yeah, okay, because I was born in 59.
Yeah. So So anyway, all of that together. So next thing you know, she is performing with her husband, and they are singing, and she is dancing, and she breaks out, starts making costumes, and she broke out her old tap shoes. And at 70 years old, she restarted her dancing and performing career.
Wow.
And she was performing in senior centers where she was older than half the residents.
So are you by chance going to, because you're only 66, are you going to have a resurgence in your disco dancing days?
So funny you should ask. No. Um, there is video out there somewhere. A couple of years ago, my wife and I were on a cruise, and we were dancing with people, like other people that we had met. And there was one young woman that was very petite, and while we were dancing, I just picked her up in this disco lift.
Oh.
Well, the performers from the crew, the actual cast that does the shows on the cruise ship, saw this, and one of the girls comes over and runs over to me. She goes, "You do lifts?" I said, "I do." And she says, "We have a dance competition where the professional dancers team up with guests. Would you be my partner in the dance competition?" And I'm sitting there looking at this stunningly gorgeous young dancer, and I'm like, "Yeah."
You didn't even look at your wife. You went like, don't ignore the lady behind the curtain. That's just my wife.
No. But the funny part is my wife was dancing with like this super good looking guy over there, right? And that was a funny thing too, because that's another whole story. But my wife's secret superhero power is to attract super good looking gay men.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So she was dancing she was dancing with that
That's
guy.
got to be like both
here.
frustrating and a relief to you.
No, yeah, very safe. Yeah. But anyway, going back to, so I wound up dancing with Megan. And Megan, if you're watching this show or hearing this show, I love you and thank you for dancing with this old fart. But we did a dance competition and almost won.
Oh.
We came in second place. But
still, for your first competition on a cruise with a stranger,
and with a stranger, and we're talking what, 40 years after my dance career? Come on.
Yeah.
So, and I hadn't really done much dancing since, so to go back to how that whole dancing thing started. Like I said, I was this little pipsqueak in high school. I got picked on all the time. I didn't, although I wanted to be out there and popular and all that, it just wasn't happening. And then after the high school era was the disco era going on, and I'm watching all these guys getting all the girls because they could dance.
Right.
I'm like, damn it, I've got to learn how to do this. And so I would watch Soul Train and American Bandstand and all these shows on TV and watch the moves and practice them with a chair and shit at home. And
yeah.
And then I started kind of creating my own variations. And then I did the smart thing. I hung around with a really good looking guy. And when we would go to the clubs, all the girls would be attracted to him. Well, they always have a leftover, right? There's always there's the one girl and then there's her friends. So while, the one is dancing with Kevin, I could go over here and go, "Hey, one of you want to dance with me in the interim while you're waiting your turn here for," and finally they would, somebody would say, "Okay." And they go out there and I'd bust out some moves and other people are going, "Hey man, what was that? That was pretty cool." And that's how it started. And I just started teaching those moves and then started teaching competition level moves. And it just advanced from there.
Now, but you also
I was the original John Revolting, though.
And that gave birth to Johnny V. When did Johnny V come about?
It was 1979.
Wow.
So
okay.
So yeah, there was a comic who would perform in between the disco sets at local nightclub.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends and I would go and see him, and he had a pretty good routine. And so we started heckling him a little bit from the audience, not in a rude way. And after the first set, he came over and said, "Hey, look, guys, if you keep it at that level, it's okay. Don't try to take over my show. Don't get rude. Don't get obnoxious. But if we do a little pander every once in a while, if you say things are getting slow, it'll be okay. So it's okay when we did that. And then he said, hey, I'll be performing at this other place on this night. Why don't you guys come? And so we went, and the manager thought we were part of the show. And it just evolved like this. So one evening, in between his first and second sets, he left the building and had a little fender bender out on the road.
Oh,
at least that's the excuse he gave us. We think he went to one of those pay by the 15-minute hotels up the road, and just wound up paying overtime. But the manager came over to the table and said, so who goes up when he's not here? And my friend said, oh, John does. And I had never done anything like that before in my life. And I went up and we knew his material, and I did his material.
Oh,
and and my friends who normally, now your friends are going to like rip you up.
Yeah.
Right. There's no worse person to have in your audience is your own posse, right? When you're doing stuff like this, but they behaved. I got through it. I got the laughs in the appropriate places. Nobody noticed my knees shaking like crazy.
Or that you actually pissed yourself. No.
Well, yeah. Well, that's why you wear dark clothes, man. It gives you a warm feeling, but nobody notices. But I got done, and I was like, hey, that was kind of cool. So I started working on some of my own material. I was working every once in a while as a roadie with another band. And so a couple of times just grabbed the mic in between sets and started telling some jokes. And I liked it. And I was like, this is kind of fun. But I knew that wasn't really a career for me. And I had a really unique opportunity. I did a lot of things at that point in my life. I didn't know where I was going professionally or whatever. And none of the nightlife. I mean, I tended bar. I was a roadie with a band. I did the comedy thing. I did the dance stuff. But none of that was something that was career minded. That old school mindset. You still have to have a job.
Right.
A real work, real job kind of a thing. And so I never considered any of those things as a career option. So I was going to college for electrical engineering. I was working as a security guard at a factory in the overnight shift while I would do my homework and stuff in just a bunch of different things. And there was this donut shop right down the road from where I worked as a security guard. And I stopped in there, and I was on the overnight shift. So it was kind of late in the evening when I'm stopped there. I'm having a cheeseburger and a donut and my coffee before I go to work. Well, this car pulls up, and this older woman gets out with a gentleman, and they walk in, and instead of sitting at a table, they actually sat at the counter. Mm-hmm. And I looked over and I'm like, she looks really familiar. And then as she's talking to her partner that she was traveling with, I went, that's Pearl Bailey. So I just looked over to her and I said, excuse me. I said, did anyone ever tell you that you look remarkably like Pearl Bailey? And she goes, oh, honey. Yeah. I'm like, bam, I was right. And she goes, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I said, oh, I've had a crush on Pearl Bailey for years. And she was like, oh, well. So we started talking, and she asking about my uniform, which was the security guard uniform. And we talked about a bunch of stuff. And I said, yeah, every once in a while I do some comedy. She goes, well, honey, where would I come and see you? And I said, I don't have anything coming up for quite a while, but like 3 months from now, I'm going to be in Brooklyn with this band, and I'll be doing this, probably grab the mic and do a set in between. She goes, I'll come and see you. I'm like, yeah, right. Thanks. And she did.
Wow.
And I hear her laugh in the audience. And I'm like, Ladies and gentlemen, I was telling a joke about my mom and bringing home a black girl as a date. And I heard Pearl's laugh, and I went, ladies and gentlemen, can we turn the house lights up here? Because my old girlfriend is here. And I called her out. Well, she came backstage afterward, and she said, that she enjoyed the show and all that. And she gave me all of her contact information. Wow. And she was going to hook me up with some people. Now, like I said, this is 1979.
Yeah.
We didn't have this.
So you were just, what, 20 years old, 20, 21 years old.
I was 21. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't have this privileged attitude, this entitled attitude that kids have nowadays, right? Where they feel like that they have access to all these celebrities and that the celebrities kind of owe them that access. This was a goddess
Yeah.
in the performance industry, right? And I'm sitting there going, that was really nice of her to give this, to be nice to me like that and to give me her contact information, but she didn't really mean it. And what am I going to do? Am I going to just pick up the phone and go, hey, Pearl, remember me? No. Am I going to go knock on the door of her apartment in New York or whatever? Like, that's not going to happen either. That's right. So, and there was no email or other ways, to kind of have a subtle outreach kind of a thing. And so I never followed up.
Damn.
Because I didn't think that there was any, real way to do that. Because she's up here and I was down here.
Did you ever stop to think that she goes back to her manager and goes, honey, I met this little young white boy. I think he's going to be so good. I gave him your contact information. And when he calls, you take him up. You work with him.
That very well could have been, or it could have been like
Pearl, where's this? Yeah, he said, Pearl, where's this little white boy of yours? And he never showed up. She goes like, honey, I don't know, honey.
Exactly. And so I think back and I'm like, okay, back in that era, I was still in that time of frame where most women gave me the wrong phone number anyway. So
you call and find out. Maybe, and at worst, you order a pizza.
I didn't do it. I never followed up. And
okay.
Ultimately, what I wound up doing is I joined the Navy. I got a serious job, and I would do some comedy stuff here and there. I got involved in some theater, musical theater, kind of getting my performance chops out every once in a while. And then I started doing a lot of training programs while I was in the Navy, and then while I was working as a civilian in government jobs. And when I was doing the training, I realized that people paid more attention when I used humor in what I was doing. And so humor became kind of a foundational element in my training and speaking technique. And about 25 years ago, maybe actually a little longer now, I started, branching out from doing that in-house training and speaking to doing it externally. And that's what I've been doing now is it was a side hustle for many years. And I finally retired from the day job in 2024 and started looking at doing more of the speaking and all that. But one of the things that is the hook for my being able to get through to people on whatever topic it is that I'm talking about is that use of humor. Because I realize that we learn more, we pay attention more when we laugh.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I should have paid. I should have realized. I lost track of time. Not for us, but mainly because when I wanted to play.
Yeah, we never did talk about the social media stuff or any of that, but
right. So yeah, tell people about how they can stalk you on social media. Let's get to that.
So I'm pretty much on the traditional platforms. I'm on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I'm John Verrico Speaks. On LinkedIn, I'm John Verrico. I'm on John Verrico on Instagram. I still occasionally post on the platform formerly known as Twitter, but I've not been on that very much anymore. I've got a website, johnverrico.com. I think that's where I'm just starting to get on
YouTube?
to. Oh God, how can I forget YouTube? My goodness. Yes. John Verrico, Share Your Fire on YouTube.
Yeah. See, I have that somewhere. Share Your Fire.
Share Your Fire is what I've called my company, and it's all about helping people to shine in the darkness and to highlight their motivational spark and their motivational fire.
Okay, thank you for doing that. You just killed one of the questions for later. No.
We didn't get into that. Whatever.
No, I'm just teasing. No, it just says the question is, what's the significance of Share Your Fire? Hi, I'm GD Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and host of Done Way Past Funny. You have just watched part 1 of our interview with motivational speaker John Verrico. Please join us as we continue our interview, and when you come back to join us, bring a friend.